another episode of That's So You. My name is Diane, aka Mrs. You, and this is a mainly knitting podcast, but sometimes there is crochet and other crafty bits and bobs. It has been some time since my last episode, and with Christmas coming up, I thought I would try and get at least one, hopefully 2 episodes in before Christmas. Yes, today, for those of you who don't know, I am based in London. I live with my husband, 8-year-old triplet boys, and 3-year-old little miss who's sitting over there just out of shot. She got back from nursery a few minutes ago. Not feeling too good, so just sitting quietly watching some TV. So it's a perfect opportunity to try and record. I have been trying to record for some time, just to show some of the things that I've made, particularly the items going into the shop for the upcoming shop update, but I will get to those towards the end of the episode. So let's get started now, so that things don't run on too long. So starting with finished objects, I only have one FO, and that is this sweater that I made for Mr. and he is triple Otter number 3. The jumper itself is, in terms of the numbers, it's based on Flaxlight by Tin Can Knits, and then I added some texture detail to the center using the Hermione's, I think it's Hermione's Everyday Socks pattern. Yes, it's Hermione's Everyday Socks pattern. I used the stitch pattern from that to just add some texture to the center. The yarn I've used for this is, it's all 3rd Vault yarns. This variegated colorway is Cosmic Turtle, and that's on the companion 4-ply base. And the darker green shade is on the Librarian Sock base, and that is the Death colorway. So I finished this when? I think it's a week or 2 ago now, and he has worn it. He wore it one Sunday to church. I think the Sunday after I made it, he wore it to church, and he is very happy with it. He's very pleased that it's finally finished. It does look good on him. The sizing is great. The only thing that needs to be changed, I would say, is the cast off on the hem. It's a bit tight, so at some point I'm going to go back. I haven't really sewn in the ends there properly, so at some point I'm going to go back and redo the cast off for that. And also for one of the sleeves, this one, I forgot to change needles when I was working the cuffs on the sleeve, so I'm just going to go back and redo the cuffs on the sleeves using a smaller needle, and then just so it looks a lot nicer, a bit more like this as opposed to this. I don't know if you can see the difference between the two. So yeah, but other than that, it's a great fit. It looks great on him, and as I said, he is very happy. So that's my only knitted FO for since the last episode. As I said, I do have the stitch markers. They are also finished objects, but I do have a half finished object. This is a mitten. The rest of the mitten is in the car, but the hand that I've made is here. The pattern for this, I can't remember the name of the company now, but I'll put that on the screen. So it's a double mitten, so you have an inner part there. So when you make it, you knit this shade, and then you pick up stitches with this shade, and then work the sock out this way, and then feed it inside. So then the inside shade is just there. So it could be worn inside out, but then if you did put it the other way around, then you would just have a full-on single color mitten, but doing it this way because this particular shade, the section before you start working the gussets for the thumb is worked a bit longer, so that way you have a contrasting colour at the cuffs of the mitten. In terms of the pattern, I did mention something in, I think it was the last episode, that generally it is easy to follow, but there isn't any indication of the sizes. It just says small, medium, large, but it doesn't say anything in terms of how wide is the small, medium and large size. And also when it tells you to pick up the stitches and repeat the instructions for the inner mitten, there isn't an indication of where to pick up the stitches, so I had to visualize it and realize that you are basically working it the same way. So because you are going to push this the inner mitten inside, the thumb has to be worked. You have to make sure you're working the thumb on the same sides that the first thumb was worked. So that means the cast on has to be, when you're picking up the stitches, you have to start picking up from this side. So just something like that, just so that there aren't any misunderstandings, because I know it would be so easy for someone to just maybe not realizing it, especially if they are a beginner knitter, starting from here, and then you end up with the thumb here, and then when you go to push this inside, the thumb is in the wrong place. So that's one of the few things I had issues with. The other thing is the yarn itself. Now this shade is fine, I have no problems with this one, but this one, almost every time I picked it up to carry on working, the strands would just fall apart, and I'm not even tugging on it or anything. I just pick it up, go to work the same stitch, the first stitch, and it just pulls apart so easily. So thankfully it is all natural wool, so I've been able to join the two ends together using the felted join method, also called the split method. That's where you either use water or split, wet the two ends, and then overlap them, and then just rub your palms together, and the heat and the friction will cause the two ends to felt together and become one. So that only works with natural fibers. So that's the only good thing about this, in terms of it breaking apart all the time, is that it's easy to put together, but sometimes when it's happened, it's been literally right at the end of the stitch, so I've had to then go back and undo a few stitches, felt it together, and redo those stitches again. In terms of the feel, it does feel nice and cozy, but it feels a little bit tight when I just wear it like this. It's like I just feel like my hand just wants to do this, so when I hold it like that, it does feel a bit tight. And if there had been some kind of indication of the sizes, I might have maybe gone a size up. I've worked the medium size, so yeah, if there had been something to say, this size is this many circumferences, is this circumference or that, or length or width or whatever, then at least it would have made it easier in terms of choosing the size. So I probably might have gone up to a large size, or just worked it with a larger size needle, just so it doesn't feel so constricted, because my thumb feels a bit tight in here. Or I might have worked a few more stitches in the outer layer, just to give them, just so that there's a bit more room when the inner layer goes in, so it doesn't feel as snug and cozy as, not snug and cozy, no, wrong word, it doesn't feel as tight and restrictive as it feels. But I don't know when I'm going to finish the other one because of other projects that I'm doing, but it's in the car. It's mainly what I work on when I'm picking little miss up from school, and I tend to just sit in the car until it's time for her to come out. So yeah, so that's that. Oh yeah, no, it doesn't have any particular name. It's just called, I think it's just called Mittens, and it has a number, but I think it's Stoff and Still, something like that. I think that's the company name here. So that's one of those down. Okay, now moving on to whips. I have 1, 2, 3 whips at the moment. Yes, 3 whips at the moment. Right, the first I will show you, I'll go with this because it's the one that's been whipped the longest, is the Swing Me Right Round sweater. I have finished the shoulder shaping and I am now about to work one of the front or slash back sections depending on how you wear it. So this is how it looks at the moment. So this is in the pattern, this is the front. So this would sit like this, and then that would go and crisscross along the shoulder, and then you have this cowl neck here. So that's all done. So when you look at it from the front, this shoulder side will go underneath, it will come forward this way, and this shoulder side would come, and this will be the one that lies on top and come across this way. So this is the section I'm working on now. So it's going well. I am trying to see if I can get this done by Christmas. I don't know if I can, but there's no harm in trying. So once, particularly when the school finishes, this would be one of those projects that I just work on and work on and work on as much as I can. The yarn is Cascade Yarns in the Midnight colorway, I believe. Yeah, and the pattern, as I said, is Swing Me Right Round by Lola Johnson. She is the dyer behind Third Volt Yarns, the yarn I used for this. Right, the next whip I have is a sock pattern. It's sort of an improvised sock pattern. If you were watching around September time, you'd know that there was a sock I made for a friend of Little Miss and the Triple Otters, and his older brother asked for socks as well. So I made socks for him. I made socks for I've made socks so far for one of the Triple Otters. Don't think I've shown that. I'll get that after this because I don't think I have shown you that sock. And that would be a finished object. And so now I'm making one for the older brother. So this is what I have so far. This is the first foot. I'm working it across 52 stitches. The one I made for Jimmy Jr. was just across 48, and that did feel like the first leg felt like it was a bit tight when he was wearing it. So for the second foot, I moved up to 52 stitches. So the first leg, I'm going to see if I can stretch it out through blocking. So this is a 52 stitch sock. I'm just working this sort of 4x1 knit ribbed pattern. Yeah, he said he wanted something sort of purple. This yarn I got as part of the Get Your Wish Granted thing that was taking place on Instagram. So this yarn was sent to me by, it was Introspective, but I'll show you more of what was sent from them. So this is the yarn. It's Osterman Step, it's called. The color is color 139. And I think it's 75% superwash wool, it just says, and 25% polyamide. Yeah, so I really like the colorway. I didn't even ask for this color, this just came, and I was so happy when it arrived because it's close to what he wanted, and I already had some purple yarn, so I decided to use that as the contrasting color for the toes, heels, and cuffs. So I'm now on the heels. I'm using a I'm doing a heel gusset toe up one, and I'm using the sock architecture book that my friend Valerie got for me for the heel instructions. So I'm still working the gusset on the heel, and for the heel, I don't know if you still call it a heel flap section, then I will see how it will look using this shade for that, and then again the this shade for the cuffs. So it's going quite well. I spent part of the night yesterday trying to work out how to do, not necessarily how to do the gusset, but whether it was time to start the gusset. And I did get a bit confused because I was misunderstanding the instructions that were given in the book. But after a while I realized that I was looking at I was counting the wrong number of stitches, and the point I was at was the correct point to start the gusset stitches. So I did a bit of that last night and a little bit this morning. So this might become my main card project now, just because I need this to be done more than I need the mittens to be done. So yes, I'm going to see how try and get this done as much as possible. Yeah, so just an improvised pattern, nothing more than that to say about it. Okay, so the purple yarn I'm using for the contrast is this Scholler and Stahl Fortissima. So yeah, so some generic yarn there. Right, to my final she's sleeping now. My final whip that I have is another jumper. This one is for Jimmy Jr. I started this, I think, at the beginning of the week. The pattern I'm using is called Raglano. I'll put details of who the designer is there. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's pretty much like a design it yourself or make design it to your own specifications or sizes. So you just take your measurements and they give instructions of how to use your measurements and your gauge to get the numbers and stuff. So that's what I decided to do, as I couldn't really see anything that would suit him that was within my budget. There was a few that were nice, but then they were a bit too expensive for me at the moment, and all others that were okay, but they weren't in his size. So this was, I think, the way to go. So this is what I've got so far. So I've joined to work in the round, and I'm still doing a bit of some of the raglan shaping. I'm coming close to the end of the raglan shaping. The yarn I'm using is, I'm using two different yarn from two different dyers. One is, if you follow me on Instagram, then you would have seen a picture of this already. One is this yarn from Madeline Tosh. It is Tosh Sock merino wool. I think it's just 100% merino wool. Yes, 395 yards per 100 gram, and the colorway is Vermilion. You can't see it as well here because of the lighting. It's not. The color is a bit deeper than that. No, still not getting it. Yeah, the colors. This is close to what the colorway is like. I would say that's probably the closest I can get. But yeah, it's a bit deeper than that. And then the other color I'm using is this. That's pretty true to color, I would say. This is from Rosie's Moments. The colorway for this is the dark side. I picked this up, I think it was 2016 or 15 from Unravel, and I had planned to use it to work in another Sunwalker shawl. I wanted to get a sort of red and black shade of that, but it's been in my stash for so long. I haven't found the yarn to go with it to make that shawl, so I thought I've got this, they would go nicely together. And I was initially going to use this for a shawl as well, but again I had another similarly shaded yarn that I'm going to use for that particular shawl instead. So these work great together, and I didn't have anything else that I could use for him without having to buy something. I wanted to avoid buying something as much as possible. So now I'm hoping I can use this to make a whole sweater for him. If not, then I might have to see what I have that can just be used for maybe the hem of the jumper and the cuffs of the sleeves. So we'll see how that goes. And again, I want to try and get this done by Christmas. It's not necessary that it has to be done by then, but I would like to have it done by then, since the other two triple artists have their jumpers done. I haven't made anything for Little Miss this year, so from as soon as this is finished, I'll start her something for next year. So yeah, that's all of my whips that I have going. So let me just put these down and I'll fish out those socks I made for Jimmy Jr. If I have shown you them already, then you can just skip past that bit. Okay, I've turned on the lights because the lighting is getting a bit darker here. I don't know if it's going to rain. Hopefully it won't. So going back now to finished objects, these are the socks I made for Jimmy Jr. The yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners in the Hollyberry colorway. And I do remember talking about this, but I don't know if that's because it wasn't whip or if it's since it's finished. So again, if you have seen this as a finished item, just skip through all of this. So as I said before, one of them is thinner, that's this one. So this is the one that's 48 stitches and this is the 52 stitches. And you can see there is a difference between the two. So the 42 stitch one is, well, that's the difference there. The 42 stitch one, 48 stitch one is a bit tight on him. And added to that, so this one I'm going to block and see if I can stretch that out a bit. So hopefully that will work, so I won't have to make another one. I do have enough yarn to make another foot, so if I do have to do that, it'll be once all the other socks have been finished. But he's happy. He hasn't worn them yet. I've kind of kept them away. I still need to do the end, as you can see. But yeah, I prefer all of them to be done, and then everybody wears their socks together. The bind off was the trickiest part because I don't like this flare that happens, and I'm yet to find a bind off that works for me, that isn't too tight and doesn't flare too much. So in the end, I just had to do this. I didn't go straight for the Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. I kind of worked one of those. I think I did every third or fourth stitch was just a regular knitted bind off, and then the rest were the Jenny Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, so that way it didn't flare out too much. But yeah, I'm still trying to find a bind off for socks that looks nice and still has good stretch. There is the tubular bind off. I tried that, but for some reason it just still felt tight. So I don't know if there was a step in there that I missed out. So then when I started these socks, I was supposed to work them cuff down because I do have casting on a stretchy cast on. Doing a stretchy cast on, I find that easier. So my plan was to do that, work them cuff down, and so that way I don't have to worry about any kind of bind off. But I kind of went into autopilot mode, and it wasn't until I'd finished the toes that I remembered that I was supposed to start at the cuffs, and I didn't want to undo all that work. So yeah, I'll have to do the same thing. I might try the tubular cast off again, or just do this one again and see what happens. So yeah. The heel I use for this is the joined heel flap, and again that's from the sock architecture book. And with this one, you work the foot, you then work flat on the toe, and then bind off. Not bind off. You work flat back and forth across the heel stitches. And then just like you're doing grafting the stitches or doing a Kitchener stitch, you then take half of the stitches and then kind of put them together and seam up the side. So I hope this makes sense what I'm saying. Okay, so once you've worked flat, you then fold the stitches over and then seam up here, and then after that you pick up the stitches on the top, so which would be the side where you've worked the slip stitches as you're working the flap, and then continue working in the round. Yeah, it was a good heel to work. The only thing I don't like is you get this kind of pointy thing at the end. I don't know if there's a way I can avoid that, or if I can maybe turn it inside out and seam it down or something, just to stop that sticking out, because I don't really like that. Even when he's wearing it, this little thing sticking out. But yeah, so he's happy with that. I'm happy with it. So it's 1 down and 3 more to go. Or should I say 2.5 to go. So that's all of those things. Let's move on to, sorry if I'm rushing. The house is a mess. I made a big mess when I was trying to find some yarn I used in jumpers I made for the boys a couple of years ago. There's some holes appeared and I need to repair them, and I couldn't find where that yarn was. So the bedroom is a complete mess with me trying to find it. So yeah, I had to clean up quickly, work on some knitting quickly, and pick up the triple otters from school. Thankfully, I don't need to cook. That's the good thing. So it's just cleaning and things to do. Yeah, so goodies. I do have some goodies. I'll start with the first one I received. So I mentioned before about the Get Your Yarn Wish Granted. For this, I was able to grant some wishes. I sent out a batch of stitch markers, and also gave away some patterns. I asked for some scrap yarn, sock yarn, and an enamel pin based around sort of like black culture, afro, similar thing to what Gigi made it and She Illustrates does. Unfortunately, I didn't get the enamel pin, but I did get the yarny stuff. So again, the same person, I think it was Nitrospective, who sent me the yarn that I showed them using for the sock. She also sent this. So this will be used in the socks for Mr. Man. He is very happy that this arrived. I was going to use some other yarn for him, and he likes this one a lot more. So this will be used for him. So I was so happy and pleased when I saw this. He's happy with the shade, and I'm excited to see how this will knit, how the stripes are going to look on this. And then she also sent me a bunch of minis. So these will go in my scrap blanket, and they could also be used for toes and heels as well. So we've got this one, this, this. Now, I have no idea what any of these are. There is that. This, this one, which I think is my favorite, and finally this one. So they are all the physical goodies that I received for the Get Your Yarn Wish Granted. And she also sent this postcard with a nice message on as well. In terms of digital things, I also asked for patterns, excuse me, one of the balls got away, patterns from my Ravelry wish list. And oh my goodness, one person sent me the Om shawl by Andrea Mowry. Another person gave me the, oh, there's one I always forget. I think it's another shawl. I can't remember, but I'll put the name up there. And another person sent me the Stasis pullover. That's one that I've always wanted to make for such a long time. So I do plan on making that one this year. So I was so excited and pleased to receive all of those patterns. So definitely the stasis I will make. The Om shawl I will make. I'm not sure when because it is quite a big shawl, but it's one I've wanted to make for some time. So yeah, next year I don't know if I'll do the same things in terms of asking for patterns and yarn, but we'll see. It would have put the enamel pin. I knew that one would be less likely because most of those makers I know who do that style of pin are in the States. So I know in terms of shipping costs and things, that one was unlikely. But you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. So yeah, I'll just have to try and get one of those pins for myself in another way. Right, other goodies I have received. It's coming in the post, I think, a couple of days ago, was some yarn. I saw this on Instagram that it was going to be added into the shop update of Lamington Last yarns. It had been a while since I bought anything from their shop, and when I saw this I just wanted to have it. So I did set my alarm to let me know when it was 7 o'clock, and when I got to the store they had 2 skeins of this and I bought both of them, and this is the yarn. It's a bit difficult to see because the light is on, but it's sort of grey base colourway. And I do like my grey, but I don't really have grey yarn. The colourway is Metropolis, and I just absolutely love this. This is going to be a sweater for me. Nobody else is having this. This is going to be for me. I don't know if it'll be a cardigan or a jumper. Obviously 2 skeins won't be enough. I don't know if she will make up any more of this particular colourway. I might ask and see if she is going to at some point. If not, I might just see if I can get a black yarn and pair it with that and do just do alternate strands of that. So yeah, I was so pleased to get this. Got the 2 that were available. It's Lamington Last soft socks, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 425 meters per 100 grams. So do check out their Etsy store. They have so many great colorways, very, very reasonable as well. So you are going to get a bargain from them. Oh, that's just reminded me about something. With the sweater I'm doing for Jimmy Jr., I am doing alternate rows of the 2 strands. With the first part, because it's the first half of the jumper is worked flat, I did changed every 2 rounds, but now that I'm working in the round, so every 2 rows I changed, but now that I'm working in the round, I'm switching yarns every round. And who was this? I think it was Grace from Bubbles Traveling Yarns. She talked about helix knitting. So that's where you're changing every round, but it's done in a way so that there isn't any jogs, and you don't get that tightness at the point where you're twisting the yarns around, and it is working very well. So that method of knitting it means that you're not getting that kind of seam that appears on something because the yarn has been twisted too tightly, and again it's not loose because you've overcompensated by the tightness by loosening the stitch, and it also there aren't any jogs. So it's not so clear to see now because of the amounts that I've done, but yeah, so this is the beginning of the round. So normally this is where you would have some sort of tightness or jogging taking place, but the way you work it is you knit up until you get to where the strands needs to be changed. So at the moment that's here, and then before you get there the instructions she gives, she says 3 stitches before, 2 or 3 stitches, but you can work to 1. So I just, when I get to the stitch where the last shade was used, which will be this, I then slip this one, and then I drop this strand and then continue working on with this one. So I've already done that with this one, so I will work this particular color all the way around. When I get to this point, I will slip this onto the needle, I'll drop this down and carry on knitting with that one. So when you work that method, you're switching, the point at which you switch colors keeps moving back, but your beginning of round is always here. So no matter what happens, you just keep knitting till you get to the beginning of round, and that's when you follow whatever instructions are given for that. If you check out her video, she gives a proper tutorial of it, and I'm sure you can find other tutorials on YouTube as well for helix knitting. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I have to show in terms of projects and things like that. So next, moving on to the shop update. For this particular shop update, I will be showcasing my new polymer clay items. So yeah, I've been working with polymer clay for some time and gradually getting better. So I do think it's time to now add things into the shop. Some of the items, as I'm adding them, I've seen, okay, next time you can do this, you can make this smaller, make this one a bit bigger. So the next one I do, there will be some slight adaptations made to the items, but I am happy with what I've produced so far. So I'll just quickly run through what's going into the shop. So there'll be these flump charms. This one will be a progress keeper and stitch marker set. And that's a 3-stranded one. I also have a 4-stranded one here, and I'll be selling them individually as well. And you can choose whether you want to have a lobster clasp on on the individual ones, or a soldered jump ring. Then I have another progress keeper and stitch marker set. This is Emmett and Lester. I think previously I may have referred to this one as Emmetal. I've decided just to call him Emmett instead. The two names just fit better that way. So Emmett and Lester. So Emmett is the progress keeper, Lester is the stitch marker. So again, they come as a set. Then I have what's next? Okay, Miss Professor McGonagall. This has gone through various stages of change. The ones I made previously, I think I showed them maybe in the last episode or the one before. The eyes came out. So I've changed how I set the eyes. So this seems a lot better now. So I have 3 of these. I have this blue one, a red one, and this sort of lightish brown one. It looks orange, but it's more of a browny brown color. And okay, I'll come back to that one. Then we have some licorice. This is the only licorice I'll be doing at the moment, but I do plan on making some more of these. I had made some previously, but I wasn't completely happy with how they turned out, so I'm going to do more of those again. So just have a black and yellow licorice, and these will be sold as individual progress keepers. And then the one I'm happy with the most, that puts probably the most work in, are the Peabodys. Now it's difficult to see, Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen these. So these are progress keepers. You've got Mr. and Mrs. Peabody in there. When was this? It wasn't last night, it's the night before. I initially had 2 of these to go in the shop, and I thought, let me make another 2, and that way I can time myself and see how much time I'm actually spending making it. Made the 2. I also had gloves on this time to avoid getting fingerprints and things like that, so that way I wouldn't need to spend time sanding them. And they came out absolutely perfect. However, when I was placing the eye ring inside it, I ended up pushing it through Mr. Peabody's face. So not on this one, on one of the other ones, I pushed it through his face and it got distorted. And I tried to fix it, but it still looked weird. So that one is now going to end up going in to a, most likely it will go into, actually maybe, depending on how I feel at the time, will go into a seconds and clearance sale that I will do towards the end of the year. So that was painful because I spent so much time making it. It came out perfectly. I'd worked out how I was going to do the sizes for the peas themselves and for the hat and the bow and everything. It came out absolutely perfectly, and then I go and put a hole in his face. So yes, I just have to go with these 3 for now, but yeah, so these are the Peabodys. So got this one, I've shown you one already, and then this one. So as I said, there's 3 Peabodys that will be going into the shop. With this one, the eyes and smiles are slightly bigger and the hat is a slightly different shape as well. But I think now I've got sizings and dimensions down a lot better. Okay, so next I have these, I don't know what to call them, instructions tabs, reminder tabs, but these for giving you instructions for stitches. So I have SSK for these. I also have SSP, and I've got make one right, make one left, and make one. And then there's also the purl 2 together and knit 2 together. The circle ones, there are 7 different colors available for most of them: red, purple, pink, yellow, blue, green, and grey. And for these longer ones, there's 3 for each of them. This one I have 2 blues and a green. For the knit 2 together, I have a red, a blue, and a sort of a pastel-y purple color. I had made more of those, but I wasn't happy with how some of the other ones turned out in terms of the glazing. Some of them, the glazing kind of got stuck underneath them, so it just, yeah, I wasn't happy with how they turned out. So I was initially going to sell these as a pair, with so the knit 2 together and the slip knit together as a set. So, but for now, I'll just do them individually, and then when I'm able to do more, they will then be available as a pair. The only ones I'm doing as a pair are going to be the make one right and make one left. So these will be available to get either individually or as a pair. So yeah, that is pretty much everything that's going into the shop. As I said, there will be a seconds and clearance sale towards the end of the month. So for all those things that didn't come out exactly how I wanted, but they're still good enough to sell, but just not what I would sell at full price. And also some of the older items I've made, which I want to kind of clear away. And on top of that, I'll also add, I do have the scrap balls and scrap tube beads that I've made as well, they will also go in towards the end of the year too. I just need to get my hands on more jump rings and things like that to add those to the shop. So I do hope you will join me for the update, which will be tomorrow. So today's Thursday, it will be Friday. I haven't really got to a particular time yet. I don't want to say specific time because I don't know what I'll be doing. Yeah, so it will just be sometime tomorrow, most likely the late afternoon. So yeah, do check out the store. Your support so far has been very much appreciated.
I got your hand. See a hand.
Your hand, what happened to your hand? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I just want to thank you so much for your support. I've had some really nice, great feedback from people who have commented and liked on some of the things that I've shown, so it's very, very much appreciated. Do check out the store for the update. If there's anything you see you like and you're able to purchase it, I do hope you do pick something up. And I do make great gifts as well, not just for knitters, but also as bracelet charms to key rings as well. And do look out for other stuff that will be added to the store. And feedback, let me know what you think of them also. Yeah, I think that is it in terms of what I have to show you. I was going to do the word for the month because I don't think I did it last time, but just because of time, and as you can see, she's woken up again. I'm going to see if I can get her to eat something. Are you going to eat something? You need to eat something. What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? Crisp?
No, grapes.
Grapes?
Yeah.
We don't have grapes.
I don't want the cheese.
You don't want the cheese? Well, we'll have to see.
No,
We'll have to see. Don't throw it at me. We'll have to see what I can get for her to eat. But yeah, thank you for joining me today. I'm sorry if it was a bit rushed in places. I will try and get another episode out before the end of the month. But if I don't, I hope you have a great Christmas if you are celebrating, and a fantastic new year.